like to get started, I'd like to call up Steve Thomason to open our meeting in prayer.
Blessed are you, Lord, creator of the universe, who provides wine and bread to our table this afternoon. Lord, we are asking for your wisdom. We seek truth. And Lord, we really want to represent you and your values as we fight for our country. And so we humbly ask that today for your wisdom. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Steve Thomason. He's our new chaplain. Okay, so I'm gonna read an Americanism piece, but if any of you, when you hear this, if you say, hey, maybe I'd like to do that, you're welcome to take it over as a job, okay? So, are these the new times that try men's souls? Is this our new American crisis, this era that we're in? The crisis. These are the times that try men's souls. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will, in this crisis, shrink from the service of their country. But he that stands by it now deserves the love and thanks of men and women. Tyranny, like hell, is not easily conquered. Yet we have this consolation with us, that the harder the conflict, the more glorious the triumph. Look at World War II, right? Civil War. The harder what we obtain too cheap, we esteem too lightly. It is dearness only that gives everything its value. This is from The American Crisis, published in December of 1776 by Thomas Paine. The clarion call that saved the American Revolution. And it gives me chills to read that to you, because we are in that time now. And it's up to us. We are in a Marxist revolution. It's a Marxist revolution. Nothing like we've ever experienced. So this was number one of 13 inspirational pamphlets that Paine wrote and published between 1776 and 1783. So if you want to dig in more, you can. So thank you for listening, and I'd like to ask Carol Blanchard to come up and give us the Pledge of Allegiance.
Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, justice for all. Thank you.
So now I'd like to call up Ro Kendall, our Vice President of Programs, who's going to introduce the Honorable Mary Barkey, our esteemed speaker. So Ro?
Thank you, Pat. Hi, everybody. Everybody having a great day? Yes? All right, then let's make it better by I'd like to introduce to you Mary Barkey, the Honorable Mary Barkey, and she was first elected to the Orange County Board of Education in 2018 and then again in 2022. She ran for office so that more children in Orange County would have the educational choices and opportunities that her own children enjoyed. Mary is a huge advocate for students and parental rights. She also works with the California Policy Center on their parent union, which is the California Local Elected Officials Union, and Janus Projects, and serves as the director of their CLEO project. Mary serves in leadership or advisory roles for several organizations, including the Education Advisory Board for Congresswoman Michelle Steele. She is also the first vice president of the West Orange County Republican Women's Federation. And she's also on the board of directors of the Cypress Chamber of Commerce and an ambassador for the Los Alamitos Chamber of Commerce. So Mary is very engaged and does volunteer work in her own community as well as throughout the states. And, excuse me, Mary has a bachelor's degree in finance from California State University at Northridge and also holds CPU, CLU, and CHFC designations. She also taught ESL. She has a lot going on. She has a lot to share with us, and she's very qualified to help us with our children and our parents in the school system as it is now. So please help me to welcome the Honorable Mary Barkey. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction. I'm thrilled to be here today. I don't know what you guys want to talk about. I think education or something like that. Is that what I'm to understand? Because I don't have an education background. Everyone thinks I do. My background is finance, as you heard. I first got into a bit of education back in 2017 after the 2016 election. I wasn't really sure what I was going to do with my life, and I met with Fred Whitaker, the chairman of the Orange County Republican Party, and he said, do you want to work in politics or run for office? And I said, oh no, that's so corrupt. Absolutely not. I'd never been in politics. I started by just volunteering for Dr. Ben Carson because I liked him, and the next thing I knew I was in Iowa, never even heard of a caucus, and by the end of 3 weeks in Iowa I was actually speaking at one. So then he endorsed Trump, so of course I had to volunteer for Trump because I was very scared of Hillary. And so then after I volunteered for him, Fred Whitaker reached out to me and said, well, what are you going to do now? And I said, I don't know. So when I told him I didn't want to be in politics, he said, okay, why don't you go volunteer at the California Policy Center? They're putting together a group. It's called California Local Elected Officials. And the idea would be that we would educate elected officials because people run for office and then they don't know what to do. They think it's a good idea to help kids or do whatever, but if we don't help them and educate them, they get taken over by big government. So I agreed to do that, and the next thing you knew, a few months later, California Policy Center said, well, why don't you run for the Orange County Board of Education? And I literally asked them what the Orange County Board of Education was. I'd never heard of the Orange County Board of Education. So I did a couple of things. I watched Waiting for Superman. Have any of you guys seen Waiting for Superman? Okay, so I watched that movie, and that movie was enough to make me want to run for office, even though I'd never heard of the office and didn't know what it really entailed. Did some research on the Orange County Board of Education and found out that they meet Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. So that was probably one reason most of us had never heard of them, because it's while people are working or doing other things. So I did run for office. While I ran for office, I taught ESL for the first time. That was my first real teaching. And I remember saying to Mark Bucher, I don't know that I know Spanish well enough to teach it. I mean, you know, I worked in El Monte for years at a drive-in, a swap meet, and sold Levi's, but I'm not sure I know enough Spanish to teach it. You know, I can say like, ¿qué color quiere? ¿Qué número quiere? You know, cogen un pugado de cintura. You know, I can talk pants, but I wasn't sure that I could actually teach Spanish. And he reminded me that I would not be teaching Spanish. I would be teaching English, and then I surely knew English. So I taught ESL while I ran for office. I was successful. I walked about 15,000 houses on my own and had lots of surrogates throughout the county walk for me because I had about 12 cities, about 150,000 houses to win over. I won by a very narrow margin of 5%, and that could have been because I was first on the ballot. They say sometimes that gives you 5%. So I won by a very narrow margin. And I did what I ran for, was I gave children more opportunity. We have, since I've been in office, we've approved 6 new charter schools, and basically any viable charter school that comes to us, we will approve. And during that time, we only said no to one, and another one we said no, do this, this, and this, and come back. And they did all those things, and they came back, and we did ultimately approve them, and they're very successful now. So the other thing we do is we do inter-district transfers at the county, which is so children aren't trapped by their zip code because they live at one zip code. We want them to be able to go wherever they and their parents think they'd be the best fit. So that's what we do at the County Board of Education. We're an appeals board. We don't do things like choose curriculum and books and all that the districts do. We leave that to the districts. But at the county, we do want to play an oversight role, and we try and you know, do good public policy and leadership. So one thing we recently did was AB 1314. Does anybody know what bill that is, AB 1314? You probably don't because it never got heard by our legislature. That was Bill Asaley, a new assemblyman in the Riverside County, put together a bill, and it was for transparency. It was so that parents would know within 72 hours of their children transitioning at school. We wanted parents to know that. We felt it was very important. Well, our legislature, which is overrun by Democrats that don't believe in government in transparency and parental rights, said that that bill was so dangerous they wouldn't even hear it. So California Policy Center got together with Bill Asaley and a coalition of about 20 people throughout the state, and we put together an even stronger policy that not only said transparency for transitioning, but also if there was any suicidal ideation or bullying. And so that way it wouldn't be just a transphobic policy to people. So we put together this policy. You've probably read that we had got it approved at Chino Valley Unified School District. That was our first school. Next came Murrieta. After that, I believe Temecula and Anderson, they may have actually come in the same night. Anderson is up in Shasta County, and we hope this coming week, on the 7th, that it'll be approved at Orange Unified. They've had their first reading. This coming Wednesday will be their second reading. I'm actually going to do a press conference there this Thursday at 6 p.m. Assemblyman Bill Asaley will be there, and many pastors and other local leaders will be there to encourage that policy to be passed. So that's what we're really focused on right now at the California Policy Center, is really helping families with transparency and parental rights. It's a big concern of ours. When bills don't even get heard, like AB 1314. So of course, what happened? Then you had, some of you may have seen the Superintendent of Public Instruction, Tony Thurmond, thrown out of Chino Valley, because Sonia is a rock star, and he tried to take more than a minute that he was allowed. Every speaker got 1 minute because they had so many speakers, and so she shut off his mic, she recessed the board, and she had a security escort him out. He wasn't really thrilled about that, so when we went to Murrieta, I think it was 2 weeks later, he didn't bother coming in person. He sent a letter that was read because he, I guess, didn't want to be walked out again. He didn't know that we all got 3 minutes that night, so he could have had 3 minutes. But in any event now, also you've probably read that our Attorney General, Bonta, has sued Chino Valley for, I'm not exactly sure, I should read it to tell you, and I do have it. But anyway, he has sued them for violating children's rights or something to that nature. The day before he sued them, California Policy Center, where I work, and I'll tell you more about, we filed a claim with the California Bar Association against Rob Bonta for misinterpreting the law and bullying school boards about it. So he's out there telling them our policy is illegal. We have had so many attorneys review this policy. We know it is legal. There is no constitutional right for children to have privacy from their parents, as he's suggesting. The Constitution states that parents direct and know the education of their children and are informed about things that are going on at school. So, and I can tell you, I just got back last night from Chicago. There were a bunch of us from all over the country meeting, and we all are concerned with liberty and freedom. And there are so many religious and legal firms up there that really want to help Chino Valley and represent them, and they know that the law is on our side. So we're confident that they'll come out of this fine. And one of the reasons that we're going around to all these school districts right now and trying to pass our policy is we know it will be much more difficult for the government to go after 30, 40, 50, or 100 districts. You know, it's easy to go after one or maybe even two, but we've got 4. Next week we'll have 5, and we just hope that it will multiply. And that districts, I know there's a lot of districts that reach out to myself and Lance Christensen every day. That's my kind of partner in crime, that are very interested in adopting the policy. They don't all have board majorities. You need a board majority to adopt it, but many, many are interested. And those that don't adopt it, we hope that in the next cycle that we can flip those boards to give them majorities on the board that are more student and parental rights focused, because it's super important. And I think that the time is right for that, because I think so many people are upset with the craziness that goes on in Sacramento. And personally, I don't even understand who these people are. I think they're absolutely evil. It's pretty insane. So that's what we're doing. My real role, as you know, at Cal Policy Center, or I'm directing the California local elected officials. So what we used to do was somebody wanted to run for office, we mentored them, we found a more seasoned school board member. So let's say we have somebody even in San Francisco who wants to run for school board, but very nervous about negotiating with the union. So we have Sandra Crandall in Fountain Valley, who is amazing at negotiating with the union. She's a former teacher, never a member of the union. She sits on the board of the Right to Work Foundation. So we would buddy them up, and she would mentor the candidate and help her so she would not be afraid to run for office. Some other local school board member already elected or running for office might be concerned about budget issues. So we have a couple of different organizations that will help them, or senior elected officials that will help them. So that's what we used to really do. Last year, we had about 400 candidates come to us that wanted to run for office. We didn't have enough mentors in our group, in our network. And so even though Lance and I were actually working with Pepperdine to put together a governance academy that's actually been endorsed by Pete Peterson, who's the president of the School of Public Policy at Pepperdine, which is one of the few graduate programs that's right of center. He endorsed it, was working with us, and we thought we need to put that on hold, because if we can't get these people elected, then the governance won't really matter. So we put that on hold, and Lance and I literally wrote a candidate academy. I wish I had it here, but I'll give you guys, if you want, there's a website you can go on and you can look at it. You can print it out. It's about a 40-page book, and it's called our Candidate Academy. Now, when you run for office here in Orange County, if you want to run for office, they give you a booklet at the Registrar of Voters. It's over 100 pages. Somebody like me, when I ran for the first time, I went, holy cow, where do I even start? We've condensed that to 40 pages. So you can look at this book, and it's, you know, it tells you when to file, when things are due, what forms are relevant here in California. And actually, short of 2 pages, you could give it to any state. I've done calls with people in Arizona. Over this week, when I met with people from all over the country, you know, they want the academy, and they can just trade out those 2 pages. So we put our Governance Academy on hold. We put out our Candidate Academy. It came out in time for all the candidates who I believe had to pull their papers by last August. I believe our Candidate Academy came out like early July, and people could go through it. It's Lance Christensen and I having great discussion. There's about 8 sessions that you can watch, and then there's the printed out version. And in the first couple sessions, we actually try and talk people out of running for office. We want to make sure that their spouse is on board, that their employer's on board, that they realize their kids might get bullied, that if they have any skeletons in the closet, they're certain to come out. And so if they make it through the first few pages and still want to run for office, then we really want to support them and help them by educating them. Because we're a 501c3, we don't financially support them or actually campaign for them, but we educate them on how to put a campaign together. So we had about 400 people that came to us, over 200 pulled papers, or right around 200, and 103 of those won their office. And so we put 103 boards out there. All the boards right now that you've seen adopt this Chino Valley policy were a result of Lance and I helping these candidates run for office, win, and take over their boards. And a lot of them require almost daily mentoring, because they've taken over a board and they have never been on a board. So all of a sudden they have the majority, and if they want help, it's the minority who doesn't think like them. So when I was first elected in 2018, I flipped the board to 3-2. But I had Ken Williams, who'd been on that board for 25 years, and he sat next to me and mentored me every meeting. I was president twice and vice president twice, and whatever role I was, he was the opposite role. So I always, if I didn't know how to put together an agenda or didn't know, parliamentary procedures, he would literally walk me through it. Sometimes my first couple meetings as president, I would talk really quietly because I wasn't sure I wanted everyone to hear what I was saying until Ken was like, okay, Mary, that's right. So I would do that. But these boards don't have that. 3 of them have won, and the other 2 people on the board are awful. And so they have to call us and say things like, Mary, I don't get the agenda till 72 hours before the meeting, and it's not enough time to review it. What do I do? And I say, well, the superintendent and staff, they actually work for you, so tell them you want it a week out. And just remind them that as a superintendent and staff, they are there to carry out your vision. You don't work for them. And a lot of superintendents try and intimidate the board members that they work for them. And so that's one of the first things we teach them is remember, superintendent works for you. It's a little different at the county because he's elected as we are, but at the district level, they are hired and fired by the board members. They ask us, questions like, Mary, I went out to visit a school and the superintendent yelled at me because I didn't tell him. Well, of course you didn't tell him, because if you tell him, he'll warn the school and they'll put the classroom exactly as you want it. But if you surprise them, you get to see what's actually there. But so on a daily basis, we help them from whatever it is to get through their meetings. As time goes along, you know, they'll be up to speed, and many of them are. They're passing great policies. You're constantly reading about them in the news because they're right over the target. And so that's a big role that I play at California Policy Center, as does Lance Christensen, who is our Vice President of Education and Government Affairs. And one tool that we have, and I'll tell you guys, you know, if you want the link, but it's something where we actually track all the bills. So if you hear about a horrible bill, you can go on our bill tracker and just look where it is, you know, what our position is on it, where it is in the Assembly or the Senate. And so we do have a bill tracker that we keep updated. We have some amazing young researchers that are just graduated from Pepperdine's School of Public Policy and other places. So we do track the bills for people so they know what's going on. We go and we speak. Lance Christensen, because he is in Sacramento, he does a lot of the speaking where he'll go actually and speak against or for a bill. And you guys can watch and you can call in, and it's helpful if you do call in. It's very easy. You get a number, they answer the phone, they tell you you're number 60, and then they get you number 60 and you say, I'm opposed or I'm for it. So that's something that everybody can take part in, and calls really make a difference. So that's important. One of our other projects, which is also a very important project, is our Janus project. And our Janus project encourages teachers and other union members to get out of the union. And it's the union money. The unions originally had a great purpose, and that was to protect teachers and working conditions and things like that. But now the unions, they collect about $1,000 per teacher per year, and all that money goes into all these bills that you and I really don't like. You know, the CTA is who endorsed and pays for Governor Newsom's campaign. And so Governor Newsom does exactly what they want, and they also pay for a lot of the campaigns of the people in Sacramento, like Corey Jackson and Dave Min and all those people that are not passing great bills. I'll just give you some stats that I have here. So let's see. The local elected officials, I have these cards out there, and if you guys want to take a look at the academy, just take one of these cards, and there's a link, and you can just look at our leadership and local elected academies. Then let's see, statewide impact. So this talks about Janus. We have defunded the infrastructure of the union by 29% have opted out of the union. So thank you. So back, I'm going to get rid of my sweater now. So back in 2018, we had a law passed called Janus. Are you guys aware of what Janus meant? Okay. Okay. So Mark Janus is actually a real person. He was in Chicago last week. I ran into him a couple of times, chit-chat. He's actually spent the night at my home when he's been out here and trying to publicize getting teachers out of the union. So he was a person just like Rebecca. So Rebecca's case, you guys have met Rebecca. She didn't want union members, teachers, to have to pay dues. And so she went all the way to the Supreme Court, and somehow Scalia passed away before the vote, and it was a 4-4. It was deadlocked. So Mark Janus basically brought her case to the Supreme Court. It was the same case that Rebecca Friedrichs had, and we won the ability that teachers do not have to pay union dues. And so since that case passed in 2018, 29% of government employees have opted out of unions. Unfortunately, the percentage is a little bit lower with teachers, where it's really important to us, and it's because the better paid someone is, the less likely they are to leave the union. We often get people to leave the union because it's $1,000 a year, and they can do a lot with that money, and we let them know if they invest that money, it's going to be worth a lot in the 20, 30, or 40 years that they teach, and that they can actually put that money into like a 529A account for a college scholarship for their child or their grandchild, versus the union. When they give the union money, those scholarships go to everyone. They don't go to your own kids. So there's many ways that we talk teachers out, but it's difficult. It's very difficult. And one of the reasons is because they don't understand. They don't realize since 2008 that they actually have the ability to leave the union. I run into people all the time that tell me, oh, my daughter's in the union, but she can't get out. She absolutely can get out. Now, their union might tell them they can't and bully them, and that's when we tell you to come to us and we'll help you get out. And usually once we get involved, they say, oh, yes, it was a misunderstanding. We actually have a website. It's called My Pay, My Say. People can go on, fill out the form, and then if they have issues, and I can give you any of the links, so let me know after if there are any links you want, and then I'll give them to you. And we get them out. We've had a number of cases where somebody goes to their union and they say, oh, sorry, but last Tuesday was the only time this year that you could get out of the union. You missed it, so you'll have to wait till next year. Or maybe you'll have to wait 3 years. And the minute we write a letter and threaten to sue them, they say, oh, sorry, yes, you get your money back. So they try and hide the information, and then they bully them. You get out of the union, you are not well liked in that teacher's lounge. You might even have some union members come visit your classroom. So one thing we encourage teachers to do is to go out in groups, because there are other like-minded teachers at school. They're just not always very vocal about it, but if you can somehow find a company, it's much easier to leave the union. It's much less intimidating. So, and a lot of people are. And the other big argument that the union will say is, oh my gosh, if you leave the union, you won't have any insurance. Well, yes, you will. You'll actually have better insurance for about 20% of the cost. And these groups that offer the insurance, American Educators Association, Christian Educators Association, the coverage is better, and they actually always represent you, where the union might not represent you. If they don't like you, they actually might not. So the insurance that's available on the open market is better. Let's see, I talked about 431 trained to run for local office, 131. Our government affairs, which Lance works very closely and all of us support him, we have killed 6 bad bills, so we're proud of that. And then we also have something called the parent union. Have you guys heard about the parent union? Okay. Yeah, so that was started by Ceci Iglesias back in like 2015. She was running for a local school board in Santa Ana, and the union was bullying her. And so she had this great idea to bring parents together to be the parent union, to protect people like her that had the values of the kids and things like that, that were anti-union values. So she created the parent union. And basically, 93 parent groups are represented through our parent union, because we don't want to be the only people out there. We've been around since 2015. You know, in the last couple of years since the pandemic, you've seen tons of other groups form. You've seen Parent Association, you've seen Unity Project, you've seen Parents United, Reopen the Schools, and all these groups. Some are better than others, but you know, they've all sprouted up, and we want to work with all of them. We don't have, you know, anything that we want to keep secret. We want to be a hub where anyone can come and work with us. So we work with tons of groups. We work with Our Duty, which is Erin Friday, where she's helping kids who are transitioning, the detransitioners. We work with Parent Army. We work with Dad's Army. We work with the Mama Bears in the Conejo Valley. I mean, if there's a group out there, we're happy to support them. We have a website, parentunion.org, and you can go to that website, and there's a toolkit. So if you're a mama bear and you want to go to a meeting, or you're a grandma bear or a grandpa bear and you want to go to a meeting, it will show you how to do public comment, how to write your statement, what to do. It'll show you how to do a public records request. If you think your local district is up to something funky and they're not being honest, you can actually do a public records request against any government institution. And we have found a lot of information through public records requests. It tells you about the Brown Act. It tells you how to write an op-ed, and if you want help, we'll help you do that. If you want to sign it, great. If you are just a great writer, but you don't want your name on it because you don't want anybody coming after you, we'll put it under our name, or we'll find somebody else to put it under their name. So we can help you with, you know, doing a rally. If you think you need a rally in front of a school that's doing something you don't like, we can help you do that. So it's just a place where there's a great toolkit, and other groups and parents just coalesce to work together. I always encourage all of these different districts to work together. Like this week we have Orange Unified, and we have people coming from other districts to help them and be, you know, people in the room. And then when, you know, there's a meeting out in Temecula, wherever it is, we'll go there too. I travel as far as I can when I don't have a conflict, but if all these parents work together, you know, the other side who's really trying to take away our rights and, you know, just very scary, they are not the majority. They are loud, but we know we're the majority. We absolutely know we're the majority, and we just have to get out there and do it. A lot of people think, well, somebody else will do it. But you can't wait for somebody else to do it. Dennis Prager says there's 3 types of people. There's the people who do it, the people who help them do it, and the people who do nothing. I'm guessing if you guys are in this room, you're probably not the people who do nothing, but if you don't want to run for office, help somebody who's running. Walk for them. Make phone calls for them. Send out letters for them. Host donuts and coffee in the morning, or brownies and drinks in the evening, so that they can meet your friends, and hopefully your friends will vote for them. So there's always something that you can do to help, because we really need to work together. You know, at the county, we have the trans community comes to our meeting every month and tells us how we're endangering their community. And it's because back in April, when Assemblyman Assaley came out with the AB 1314, the transparency bill, and we heard that it wasn't going to get a hearing, we passed a resolution in favor of it because we wanted to show leadership. We wanted the county and beyond to know that we support that. As a result, the trans community comes out every month and tells us we're endangering them, and tells us like they're the majority and they're going to take over, and we know they're not. I mean, a good example is my recent election. So my first election, I won by 5%, just barely. Actually, the night of the election, I was losing. I didn't start winning until the next day when more votes came in. But in 2022, 4 years later, I ran against Martha Floor, who is associated with the Floor Company, 29-year trustee in Newport Beach. They purposely gerrymandered my district during the redistricting. I live down in Rossmore. I don't know if many of you know, but it's right by Leisure World in Seal Beach. And so they took, when they redistricted us, they took away Westminster, Garden Grove, and Stanton, which all neighbored my city, and they gave them to somebody else. They gave them to Tim Shaw. And then they took me into Katy Porter's Irvine. I do University Hills, which is kind of a long drive from my house. And then I got half of Newport Beach. I share it with Lisa Sparks, which was also very confusing to her supporters because they thought I was running against her. We're actually colleagues, and I would have to argue with people at the door when they said, oh, no, I'm going to vote for Lisa. I said, no, you voted for Lisa 4 years ago, but now you have to vote for me. And finally, I just said, you know what? Just vote for Barkey or Sparks. You'll figure it out when you get your, because only one of us, and I even showed them on my walking piece that she had endorsed me, and she obviously wouldn't endorse me if I was running against her. And it was funny, Balboa Island was a new piece of my district, and so I was walking around Balboa Island, and this man was working on his boat and just arguing that, you know, he was going to vote for Lisa. And I said, that's fine, vote for Lisa. And about an hour later, he tracked me down in the community, and he said, you know what, you're right, I'm voting for you. You're the one on my ballot. So... yeah, he did. And I think part of it, they had to put me in Newport Beach because they ran Martha Floor against me, who lives in Newport, but I think part of it is they wanted to confuse our constituents so that they didn't know who to vote for. But you know what happened? Oh, and then they put somebody who's right of me in the election. So he actually took 10 points, and he's just like, I ran into him a couple months later, and I said, why did you run against me? And he told me, I said, that's not even under my jurisdiction. He just had this funny look on his face. I said, are you going to run against me again? He said, no. I know somebody had, I don't know, paid him or put him up to it or what had happened. So he got 10% of the vote, and I still beat Martha Floor by 27 points. And I think the reason that they thought that she could beat me was because of her experience. As you know, I'm a finance major. You know, I first started education back in 2018 when I was running for office. And they really thought that she would beat me because my district was considered a toss-up, which meant it could go either way. And so I was a good target for them. And they spent a lot of money. There's one judge. Her name is Judge Lynn Riddle. Anybody know Judge Lynn Riddle? I can't imagine any of you would. She's a retired federal judge. I think she's approaching 90. She does not like me or anything I represent. She spent $42,000 of her own money against Lisa and I. There's a PAC, it was called Citizens Against Mary Barkey and Lisa Sparks. She put $30,000 in that, and then she gave $6,000 to Martha Floor and $6,000 to the lady running against Lisa. And after that, I stopped calculating how much she was spending against us. But so she felt that she could get us, but obviously in a toss-up, if I won by 27 points and there was a guy right of me, there's Democrats that clearly voted for me, or NPPs. So education is not necessarily party. People just care about their kids. And so we have to get out and we have to work and we have to let people know that we're the majority and we care about the kids. I think that a lot of us are just quiet and polite, and I believe in being polite. My mom taught me to always be a lady. I sit on the dais, people come up for 3 minutes, they can say very hateful things to me, about me, they stare at me, and at first it used to really make me upset because I think before I ran for office, not everyone loved me, but I didn't have enemies. After I approved my first charter school, I had enemies, and after my second charter school, I had more enemies. But I just smile back, and I've gotten to the point, I've gotten so good, I actually make them look away sometimes when they're being vile, and I just smile at them. And in my head, I'm thinking, my mother told me to always be a lady, but I would really like to take off my shoe and throw it at you, but I won't. So that's what's going on in my head, and that's why I always smile. Because people say to me, how do you always smile? And I said, I just do. You know, I don't tell them I want to take my shoe off and throw it at people, but I do often want to do that. Not often, but anyway, it's much better to smile, and I think we're going to win. We just all have to work together to win. That's kind of my feeling. Let me just see if there was anything else I really wanted to cover. Then I'll open it up for questions. So we have our California Policy Center bill tracker. I'll send you the link. So if anybody, you just go on and you can see all these bills. Somebody asks you about 1314 or 10678 or 665. You can just look and you can see what our thoughts. Oh, uh-huh. Well, you know what's more overwhelming is people ask me about bills that aren't even on there. And they say, Mary, but you know, 699 is not on there. And I said, you know what? We have to pick and choose. We have to stop someplace. We have to prioritize. And I can't remember what her bill was, but I mean, it's important. There's so many important ones, but we're an educational nonprofit, and so we kind of focus on those areas. And we focus on liberty and freedom. That's, you know, what we do at California Policy Center is we want to make California more sustainable. We want to remove the public sector unions that are threatening our freedom. We promote liberty. Yeah, so just, you know, if there's something that interests you, just, you know, you can look it up. And you can always, if you want more information, you can Google it too. You can just, you know, put, you know, SB means Senate bill, AB means Assembly bill, and whatever the bill is, if we've got it on there and you want to know more about it, because we don't write everything about it, but you can go and look at the bill. And some of these bills really change because they do this gut and amend, where it means one thing and then it dies, and then they pick up the bill and they just gut it and do something totally different, and you don't realize the bill is very different and usually very scary. Let's see. I wrote an article for the Sierra Thread, which is a newspaper up in Northern California, Shasta County, Nevada County. And it's just kind of interesting. I think the title of the article was, we have to elect strong leaders because we need people to stand up against these bills. So if you want, I can send that. It's a little bit of a long read, but it goes through 3 bills and how dangerous they are and why it's so important for these board members to stand up and fight for our kids. You know, we've got some boards around Orange County that literally they're more interested in being elected and being friends than they are doing the right things for kids. And it's very, very disturbing to me. I'll say something like, okay, we're sending a letter to Governor Newsom. There's like 200 of us that have signed it. Will you sign it? And she'll say, oh, I don't want my colleagues to be upset with me. Well, really? So we need to make sure that when we are electing people, that they are going to live up to their campaign promises and that they're going to be strong and fight for our kids, that they just don't enjoy being honorable and meeting with their board members once a month and having a meeting. So that's super important. But I can also, I was just going to read you this. This is only a minute long. So this is what I finalized after going to a lot of board meetings. And when I've been going to them, I do public comment. Typical, you get 3 minutes. That's what we almost always give is 3 minutes. But sometimes we've had 100 or 200 speakers. And so we have to say, well, if you want to do 3 minutes, and we're going to do like 10 of you, maybe 20 of you before we get to our agenda. But we've got people in this room, and Betty knows, that they come in and they've got their attorneys. They're paying an attorney to talk about their charter school, and they're on the agenda. And we want to take them in a timely fashion. So we'll say you can speak for 30 to 60 minutes, but then the rest of you will speak after the meeting. But if you want to speak for 1 minute, we could probably take most of you before the meeting. And so a lot of times they'll say 1 minute's fine. So what I did was I got these comments. This is actually, if I read the entire thing, it's 1 minute 20 seconds. But I'll read it, and this is pretty much what I will say on Thursday when I go to Orange Unified. Good evening, board president and trustees. I'm Mary with California Policy Center. And I do that. I don't say I'm Mary, Orange County Board of Education, because I'm not speaking for the board. I'm speaking for myself, and I'm speaking for California Policy Center. I do believe that my 4 colleagues agree, but I always say I'm Mary with California Policy Center. They introduce me, and they'll write about me with the Board of Education, especially if they're mean, but that's okay. It's never okay to lie to or deceive parents. Honesty is always the best policy. Adults should know better than to tell kids to keep secrets from their parents. And I'm referring to teachers here that want to do that. The U.S. Supreme Court has consistently ruled for the last century that parents, not schools, possess the fundamental right to raise their children and to direct activities and make decisions regarding the child's care and to control their education. Parental rights are among the basic civil rights of man. Children do not have the right of privacy from their parents. Education Code Section 51100 and 51101 are very clear that parents have the right to be informed of their child's progress in school and have access to their school records of their child. Some of these schools are keeping double records and only want to show the parents, a certain record. Nowhere does current state law require teachers and administrators to openly lie to parents. I'm very concerned that the state superintendent of public instruction continues to intentionally misrepresent the law and bully local school boards. This is also an infringement of our local control. The relationship between the teacher and parent is very important. Secrecy erodes that relationship and the trust between parents and teachers. It also puts many teachers in the awkward position of having to lie to someone and leaves students wondering whom they should trust. Thank you for proactively discussing policies that strengthen and validate legal and constitutional parental notification procedures. I strongly support this parental notification policy and hope you'll pass it tonight. So that's basically what we're telling them is they're well within their law to do what's right. And there's no law that gives children privacy, and there's no law that gives the district the right to keep records from parents. But we know of a number of districts that are doing that. We've seen teachers fired for doing that, for actually so-called outing the kids. We're not outing the kids. Everybody knows but the parents. This is going on in school. They've either changed their pronouns, they've changed what bathroom they're using, they've changed what team they're playing with, what locker room they're using, and we believe that parents know what's best for their kids and will love them more. What's going to happen if something goes bad and the parents have no idea? Parents need to be involved. And then next year, this teacher who has this great relationship that wants to raise our kids, where are they? So we think that's really important, and that's basically what I go around trying to encourage is that we're teaching our children to lie. It's horrible. I mean, who does that? Who deceives parents? Who lies? So it's a really bad thing. So that's what I've been doing a lot of. But if it's okay with you, I'll just open it up to questions rather than I could just, yes, please, yes. Okay. Exactly.
And my question is, what parents are against parental notification?
Thank you. Looks so pretty.
No, I mean, they come speak to us and they tell us they're parents. I would say most of them aren't. We actually have had, I've now seen, I think, 4 members of the Communist Party come talk to us about, that.
They're against it.
Yes, they're against it. Yes, communists are against it for sure. And they're openly admitting to being communists, which I can't believe. One second I'll come to you, but I will tell you. So I have not met very many parents that are against it. We've done lots of polls, and I want to say the numbers are like in the 80s. The parents feel they should know. It's the unusual parent to me that doesn't think they should know. And I've heard a couple of them speak where they come to the board and, I think children should have privacy and whatever. But I think it's the unusual parent that doesn't want to be involved in their child's education and believes that they should be kept in the dark. But just to let you know, so California Policy Center is a 501c3 nonprofit. We are nonpartisan. We educate Republicans, Democrats, no party preference. And what we really want is to make California more sustainable by eliminating public sector barriers. And it doesn't matter what side you're on. And I know we get, some people say we're a right-wing organization. We are absolutely not a right-wing organization. I can tell you that from the bottom of my heart, that we're not. And there's people like Erin Friday. Does anybody know who Erin Friday is? So Erin Friday's daughter, she lives up near San Francisco. Her daughter was being transitioned in school. And she kind of found out just in the nick of time to save her daughter from transitioning. So now she co-founded an organization called Our Duty. You can look it up, O-U-R Duty. And they work with kids and they work with detransitioners. have you guys heard of Chloe Cole? Have any of you seen her testify to Congress? So Aaron and Chloe are very good friends, and Aaron helps people like Chloe, hopefully before they transition, but if they've transitioned. We had Chloe Cole, she spoke up when I was in Marietta. She spoke 3rd, and I think I spoke 13th. She's an amazing, amazing young woman who just is really doing this to save other kids from the torture she went through. And I actually interviewed her, and she's just such a sweet person. Her brother comes with her, who's this huge, huge guy that he doesn't let her out of the sight because a lot of people, you know, would like to harm her because she speaks against transitioners, and people don't like that. So Chloe is very powerful. She's the nicest, sweetest young 18-year-old you'll ever meet her. Maybe she just turned 19. I asked her. I think she may have just turned 19. And she's really sad because she feels like her teenage years were stolen from her. She transitioned from being a girl to a boy, I believe at 13. And then at 15, Kaiser removed her very healthy breasts and gave her a double mastectomy so she could look like a boy. And her body will forever be changed. Her voice will forever be changed. And now you see her, and she dresses like an adorable girl. She's the sweetest thing ever. You can Google her, and you can see she testified before Congress. It's Chloe, C-H-L-O-E, Cole, C-O-L-E. And she is one of my heroes because she goes around telling her story. And so she spoke during public comment in Marietta. Marietta actually gave us 3 minutes. The lefties on the board wanted to hear 3 minutes, which was kind of interesting. What they really wanted to do, the president of that board is 85 years old. They wanted to wear him out. I think they thought if they there were 60-something, maybe 65 of us, and they thought if we all spoke for 3 minutes, we would wear him out and he wouldn't vote the right way. In the final hours, he voted the right way. And so, yeah. But he had people in the audience who came up to him and said, Mr. Diffley, I've known you since I'm 11. Don't harm our community. And I mean, he had people really targeting him. But he voted the right way. So Chloe spoke, and then one of the board members who we mentor, they have 2 brand new board members there, which they gave them a majority with their 85-year-old board president. And one of them asked if Chloe Cole could come back up for another 3 minutes just to, let everyone know. I mean, she lives like above San Francisco. She lives very far away. She had, driven all the way down, and she's an expert. She's done it. She's been there. She's transitioned, and she's transitioned back. And so her information we felt was very valuable, and so she did get to speak a second time at the request of a board member. And that was something, as her mentor, I told the board member, ask your board to bring her back. And I also told her, when I was mentoring her, that the minute you have an opportunity, make a motion to pass this policy. Because if somebody else makes a motion not to pass the policy, there's 2 people that would vote, and then the president could be swayed that way. So if you make the first motion to vote for the policy, and she actually made it the first time prematurely, and then she came back and made it exactly when she should, and they voted, that the 2 new members both voted for it, and then we were waiting for, President Diffley, and finally he voted. And I actually spoke to him the night before about it and told him he was well within his legal rights to do that, and that he would sleep better if he did that. That he would be on the right side of the law and the right side of history if he voted in favor of the policy, and he did, and I know he's happy that he did that. Yeah. I'm sorry, you have a question?
First of all, Kelly Feldman says hello. She was here instead of at work.
Well, tell her hello.
Thank you. My church is Calvary Chapel, Chino Hills, and so what?
So you know what's going on.
Right.
Because they're part of the coalition. Gina Gleason is a big part of our coalition.
Right, and that's where I share her AB issues with our club in Tustin. I was surprised to hear what you said. Do I understand that California cannot sue Chino Hills and Temecula? They're suing us.
Well, they can try, but we don't think they have the law behind them, and that's why we filed a complaint with the Bar Association when Bonta threatened to sue. We filed our complaint, I think, Tuesday, and then Wednesday they did sue. So they can sue all they want, but I don't think they're on the right side of the law.
And then there was a $1.5 million fine for not having Harvey, what's his name's book.
Milk.
Did that fail or go away, or?
Well, that's an interesting issue. So our new board in Temecula, again, 3-2, all 3 of them are brand new, and the president, Joseph Komrosky, did the right thing by pulling the book because Harvey Milk is a pedophile, And the governor just went crazy. He just went crazy and threatened a huge fine and did this and did that. And I think because Joe was getting so much heat, they pulled back. But it doesn't mean you have to read Harvey Milk, and they'll sort through it. But yes, Governor Newsom was threatening to fine them $1.5 million,
Yeah.
and then pay postage of another $1.6 million or something. We don't even believe he had the authority to do that, but it was enough to cause such an uproar that they had an emergency meeting, and they didn't preclude the book. But it's not going to be a recommended book, and nobody has to read it. So that'll be sorted through. Temecula redeemed themselves after that because, I don't know, within a week or two, they passed our policy.
Great.
So,
Thank you.
yeah, sure. Great question. Thank you for asking. Anyone else? Betty?
I actually have a comment. I want to thank you for flipping that Board of Education to the right side of things, because now we see all over Orange County, school boards are starting to do the right thing. But in attending some of the board meetings, including the one in Temecula and Orange Unified, I noticed that there are a tremendous amount of people that represent the teacher unions there. And they are very, very hateful, and they start recalls. There's a recall right now at Orange Unified, and it is through your bravery and that of your board that leads, even though you don't have supervision, but you lead in policies that the other school boards can follow. So I urge all grandparents, because we don't see many of them at the meetings, it does not need to be your school board. Attend the meetings, take up a seat, and if all you have to say in those 3 minutes is, I support the board's decision, that will make an impact with reference to the teacher unions. And I think the national is now very well aware of what's going on in Orange County. And more hateful speeches are going up. And if you want to protect people like Mary, that is protecting our parent rights, our student rights, and our teacher rights, you need to be there and take up a seat and get up there if you feel like it and say, I support the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Betty. I appreciate that. Yep. I mean, what she's saying is right. If we can fill up the room, it's helpful. I can tell you, I no longer go to board meetings on my own. I always take a friend with me just to have another person's eyes on me, because I have walked actually into Orange Unified, had a clear, a seat was being saved for me. I was walking, foot went out, and literally I did airtime. That was a purposeful tripping of me. And now I've learned I actually should have filed a complaint. So I don't go anywhere. Last time when I went to Orange, I took Barbie George with me. I don't know if you guys know her. And she wouldn't let me go to the bathroom by myself. I couldn't pull a card by myself. But it's, when I went out to Temecula, I took Linda Cohn with me. And, she's a force to be reckoned with, too. It's just good to have another set of eyes with you. So, but we do appreciate, and you don't have to speak at all. But, yeah, if you can do like Betty said, somebody goes up there, they make an amazing statement, and you say, I agree with the last speaker, thank you. And we love that, because if everybody speaks for 3 minutes, we're there all night. And that's why I only speak for a minute, because that's all I need to speak for. I don't need to take up your time for 3. But you can just say a few words like, I agree with the speaker before me, or I agree with the 10 speakers before me, or I've never done this before, but I stand for the parents in this board and I support what they do. You can just almost say nothing. And you can actually also have somebody else speak for you if you're too scared to speak, and they can go up and say, I'm speaking for Mary Barkey because she's scared to speak, so this is what she has to say. Yes.
Can I just say one more thing? I know that coming up this next Wednesday that's coming up, and Bob asked a question about communism, there will be a resolution at that board meeting, and something similar to that failed because of the people that were for communism that was brought up before by the Board of Education. But this is a resolution to try to stop the communism that
So come visit us at the county is what Betty's saying. If you have nothing to do this Wednesday at 5 p.m., we will be meeting in Costa Mesa, and you can come visit and you can stand against communism. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I have a high school friend that was a teacher for 35 years, paid union dues. Her retirement was her paying union dues. Is that not the case?
Oh, so her retirement came from her paying union dues? No,
Yes.
that's not the case. That has nothing to do with it. You know, the union will tell them that they don't bargain for them anymore. That's not true. The union bargains for everyone, whether they pay dues or not. So no, it does not affect any of that. The only thing it might affect, realistically, is that they don't represent them legally. But like I said, that's not guaranteed anyway. If you're on the wrong side of the union, they don't have to represent you. They should, but they don't have to. So no, that will not affect your retirement. Definitely not. The only thing that affects retirement is if you quit, kind of like Rebecca did, because she just had it. And so that changed her retirement because she just couldn't take it any longer.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
I'm loud enough that I don't need a microphone. I am in the blessed position of having retired after 30 years of teaching, 1 year at 5th grade, 16 at junior high, another 15 at high school, and finally, because I'd been fighting a battle at that point of simply being a woman, I was appointed assistant principal at Costa Mesa High School. So many of the things of which you speak are foreign from my years of being in the classroom, but honestly, you cannot know how much we bless you for trying to help those of us who loved to teach children.
And you know, we have nothing against teacher, and that's why we even say Janice is really not to, we love teachers, and we don't want them to pay dues that go towards bad bills and things like that, but we love teachers. As a matter of fact, I love Betsy DeVos. She says we should call them the school unions, not the teachers union, because they don't necessarily help the teachers, and we love the teachers. And most teachers are like Rebecca. They love to teach, and they want what's best for their kids, and they're very frustrated. And that's why you see some teachers getting fired, because they're not complying with their school's, we think, illegal policy of not letting parents know what their kids are doing. They're telling the parents what's going on, and then they're getting fired. So, but we love teachers, most teachers. Now, if you go to an Orange Unified meeting, Betty's been there, you will see this union, and it's really scary. The people that like trip me and say vulgar things, they're teaching our kids, and that is super scary. But I would say the majority of teachers are amazing, but Orange Unified just has some delightful characters that gosh, if I was in that school system, and so many parents have pulled out their kids. There were a bunch of news agencies there, and I remember Spectrum News came up to me and asked me if I had any kids in the district, and I said no. And even the parents who lived in the district, most had pulled their kids out. So it was hard for them at an Orange Unified meeting to find Orange Unified parents that still had kids in the system. They were there, they were in district, but their kids were no longer. They were in private school or homeschooling or charter schools. So parents are becoming aware. That was one of the few bright things of the pandemic, is a lot of parents became aware of what their children were and were not learning.
Mary, thank you so much. You know, I've known Mary for a long time. Today I found out what she does, more of what she does. So she's such a diligent, passionate, dedicated hard worker, and we're so grateful to you. And we will support you and with the bills whenever we can. A lot of us don't walk precincts, but we will make calls, and we'll work hard. Thank you again. Isn't it great to know that she's doing all this work? We don't have a school in Laguna Woods, but we're all grandparents, so we can be influential. Okay. Thank you, Mary.